Yeah, I don't think the donkey is all that amused. This is a good example of how not to do it. Here we have another teeter-totter on wheels. If you see the balance on this one, small wheels, high elevation to the poles, they hit a rod in the road, the whole weight pivots on the back of that poor donkey. That's probably one of the worst ways to build a donkey cart. Here on the other side we have a classic. See the size of the wheels and the alignment where the shafts are absolutely in line with the poles, so there's little or no teeter-tottering, and the donkey carries, the weight is all carried by the axle rather than the donkey's back. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If I don't know the answer, I'm just going to make it up. Okay. Steering. This is a traditional steering. They're around for 130, 140 years. If you buy a car, coach, or anything, look at the steering mechanism. It should be something like this. If you see big steel plates, axle with a hole drilled through and a screw stuck in, think twice. The steering is important. It gives you balance, stability, and it needs to be light enough so you don't put any extra weight on your carriage. Okay, unloading of tongues. This is a highly qualified drawing I made in a couple of minutes. You see the tongue here, and the tongues can be pretty heavy. If you have an old-fashioned wooden tongue, oak tongue with heavy iron on it. And a very simple way to unload it, have the front axle or the box carry the weight of the tongue. A piece of chain, a rope, a spongy cord, whatever. But it's easier for the front axle to carry the weight of the tongues rather than the back of your draft animals. Any questions so far? Do I go too fast? I'm either way the best speaker or you're the smartest audience. Okay, brakes. This is the old-fashioned brake. It works, it's reliable, it's simple, and you can visually check it. You have your brake blocks here. You can see wear and tear on it right away. You have your brake block holders, the brake levers, and the brake holder. It's fairly simple, it's time proven, and it's reliable. There are a lot of newer carriages using automotive brakes. They work, but they have one drawback. They brake from the inside of the brake from the hub rather than outside on a tire, which put a lot of strain, especially on wooden spokes. So in case of doubt, the old-fashioned way is always, we know it works. Here we have a chuck wagon, and you can get a glimpse on the brakes. You have your brake lever, which is long, gives you a lot of control over the brakes and gives you a lot of pressure on the brakes. And the brake block braking on the outside of the tire gives you a lot of braking power. If you would brake it from right in here and the tire keeps going, it puts a lot of stress on the connection on the wheel. Here's another example of brakes. You can see it a little bit better. Again, you have the long lever, what gives you the braking powers. You have your floating brake beam and the pads will go directly to the tire. Springing. You see a lot of springing on wagons, And unfortunately, there's a lot of automotive springs who are often simply too stiff. And if you want to look for springs who are specifically made for wagons, they're softer. They're usually most commonly type is a double spring, which don't have to slide on a chassis, so you have far more stability on it. And it gives you a better cushioning on your ride without much shivering and going up and down and getting you seasick. Springing of wagons is around for quite a while. This particular one is interesting. I just had to throw it in. It's a Roman wagon. This one is 2,000 years old.
Wow.
I actually have seen it in person in the Roman Museum in Cologne. Very interesting is the suspension. Much like the stagecoach, but the other way around. So you go seasick this way rather than that way. The steering mechanism is pretty heavy but well designed. It has a heavy wooden wheels with the iron tire, heavy hubs, the spokes, and overall it's quite well designed. Wagons are around for, well, there's some different opinions. Some say they're around for 6,000 years. There's some petroglyphs, what could be wagons. The oldest existing wagons we know actually come from Egypt, from Tutankhamun's grave. He had 4 war chariots in his grave. Yes?
Is that a replica? And if it's not, how has it survived 2,000 years?
Well, it has extensive restoration. I would say some of the wood survived and all the metal survived, and it probably has been rebuilt from the iron up. This is one of my favorite type of wagon. This is a Studebaker type spring wagon. And if you look at one very important thing to look on a 4-wheel vehicle, always make sure that the kingpin on the front axle is connected to the back axle. That will give a lot of stability, basically gives you a four-wheel drive without having the steering mechanism and the front mechanism too heavy and clumsy. Nowadays, gooseneck carriages are very common, where the front wheels slide underneath the chassis, but that unfortunately make it very heavy, and they also have the tendency to tip over. This is actually one of my personal wagons. It has 48 by 1s on the back and 44 by 1s on the front on iron tire. And it has so little roll resistance, just to show off, I can pull it with my little finger.
Wow, cool.
The roll resistance on the wagon is the height. The bigger the wheel, the less contact you have with the surface. And the easier it is to climb over stones, ruts, holes, potholes, and such. And what I don't like is wagons coupled together out of surplus automotive parts. White tires, they're designed to transmit power to the road. They're not designed to pull easily. Okay, here we have a classic wooden hub. A little blurry, so squint your eyes, please. This is around for thousands of years. It still works. It's a little bit maintenance intensive. I always tell somebody, if it's a nice wooden wagon, don't let it sit out in the weather. Consider it a fine piece of furniture. You wouldn't take your favorite dining table and just set it out on the lawn. You have to keep it the painting on it. This one is actually raw, just to show it off better. But keep it painted, keep it oiled, soak it in linseed oil or something like that, and make sure it don't dry out. Yeah, like my throat right now.
Could you use the mouse so they can see where you're pointing? Could you use the mouse so that people who are watching on the web can see where you're...
If you can show me how to do it.
I think Alistair can.
So if you
Okay.
just use the mouse to point instead of the laser pointer, they can still see it on the screen. And
Okay.
that way people online can see it as well.
Oh well,
Thank you very much.
I can see it now, but that's okay. Well, here you see the hub rings. If you have wooden wheels, make sure your hub rings are tight. Check them for tight. A simple way is to use a light hammer or a piece of hardwood, tap it. If it sounds hollow, check it out or have it checked. Let's go to another example of wheels. This is a similar wheel, again, a traditionally made wooden hub wheel. I like the looks of it, and I like the way they drive. The springiness from the hickory spokes is so much nicer than solid wheels or steel wheels or bicycle type wheels.
Well, also you do get springiness right out of the spokes and not just the springs on the axle.
Yeah, they have a certain elasticity, what gives you a better traction. It's kind of a live material. It's a bit of a maintenance nightmare. You have to make sure that you keep them dry, well painted, well oiled, but I think it's worth it. This is the PA bolt hub. It's an okay design. That's actually what's commonly used nowadays. You see them quite often in wooden wheels. It's a design, it's shortly after the Civil War, and they work pretty good. The nice thing is, if you have any shrinkage, you can retighten them a little. But also, as a maintenance part, make sure they're dry. Okay, let me see if I can get this thing here.
What's that called again?
It's a PA bolt hub. It's just a style.
Why don't you use the laser pointer? No, let's do this.
Okay, that's much better. Okay. See right here, if water gets in, they tend to rot, so make sure everything is nice and painted. This is a fine piece of woodwork, so it's like you wouldn't take your Steinway piano and just set it out on a lawn. Here's the classics. This is one of my personal favorites. It's the 1888 Studebaker. This was probably the height of coach building. With the invention of the automotive, wainwriting has severely degenerated, and there's a lot of modern coaches built by pipe fitters, quite heavy steel constructions, and some of them literally weigh tons, and there's a lot of unnecessary weight. This whole thing is probably less than 200 pounds.
Bob,
Yes.
where does the shaft tie in on that cart? I can't see.
The shaft ties in right here.
Oh, okay.
It has bent poles. The poles bend and they tie into the front axle with clips. Yeah, imagine you're going with this thing. These are probably 48, 44 wheels. This particular one has elastic tires. You go 35, 40 miles an hour with no brakes on less than perfect roads, and it's an adventure.
Are those wooden spokes?
Yeah, those are wooden spokes. Those are wooden hickory spokes with 1 inch bent fellows, and this particular one has Sarven hubs. The Sarven hub is kind of hybrid between a wooden hub and this metal hub, and they're very functional, and in my opinion they have a very elegant look to it. Yeah, this is the springing on this. It's sprung in front and double sprung in the back. And then you have an unsprung seat, so it's a fairly decent ride. Okay.
That's your last slide.
Hmm?
That's your last one.
That's it? Oh, wow. Anyway, if we have any questions or... Yes?
These vehicles we've kind of been talking about the last couple of days seem to be ones for like going down the road, either with freight or for people. And I'm wondering for those of us who have, or animals, who take them kind of off-road and have the metal, easy entry cars, which you kind of explained aren't very good. I'm wondering what would be a decent vehicle that could go off-road more and bump something.
For off-road, let's see if I can backspace it here. Something like this. This is made for really rough terrain, to fording creeks. See the ground clearance on this one here? You can go over some severe ruts, or you can go to a creek what's 18 inches in depth. The beauty is a tall wheel. What makes it so much easier to go over rough terrain and the great ground clearings. This is probably right around 24 inches on ground clearance. So you can go off-roading with this one. Yes, ma'am.
Going along with what you were talking about yesterday, would you take a minute to analyze that picture for us? It appears to me the shafts are a little high on the donkey's shoulder, and it's certainly not in line with the hub, I think, but I'd like to have you...
Well, if you see the poles are pretty much in line with the axle.
Now, it may just be my 66-year-old eyes, but to me it looks like it's going up.
And it might be just the optical illusion.
Okay.
It's supposed to be straight. Let's just assume they're straight.
Okay, well, no, I don't mean to be the devil's
No, no,
advocate, but I was trying to apply something
Yeah.
that you said yesterday, because I'm still having a hard time getting my head
Okay.
around the axle being
Yeah.
the shaft.
Keep in mind, folks, the only dumb question is a question never asked. Yes, sir.
In the picture, it looks like the animal and the cart are on a hill, and that would make a difference
Yeah.
in the position of the shaft.
It's a rather old photo, but I like the design on this one. It's light, it's well balanced, and has big wheels, and see the passenger actually sitting right between the wheels. What's a lot of fun in rainy weather.
Are there springs on there?
Pardon me?
Are there springs on there?
The springs where? Springs? Yeah, it's sprung right here. It has a double leaf springs on both sides.
So it's from the seat to the carriage, that's where the spring is?
Yeah.
Is that a better place to have your springs between the main chassis and the seat, or is it better to have the springs between the axle and the chassis?
It really makes not that much of a difference. On some fancier carriage, you have both, they're sprung on the axles to the chassis, and then the seat itself is sprung again. Keep in mind, back in those days, roads were less than perfect.
Those days.
Hmm? Yes, sir.
Would you be better off having your shafts parallel along the line and then have them bow down to the axle on that? If you did, would that be an improvement to this wagon?
I think the best thing is...
Because it looks like where it's connected to the axle, you need to come up about 12 inches to get that shaft,
No, see, the axle is right here,
Yeah.
The shafts go in line with the axle. That gives you the least pivoting moment you can achieve. Let's go back here to this one here.
You don't think that it's real important to have the shafts parallel with the ground and up there parallel with the horse or donkey?
If the shafts are bent up, that's no problem either, as long as the bend is slight. But see on this one here, that's an example how not to do it. You have very small and very wide wheels. You hit a stone right here, the whole thing comes to a halt and the whole weight shifts on the shoulders of the donkey. That's why they only live 10, 15 years out in a developing country. And the design could be very simply improved by using a bigger wheel with a smaller tire that would eliminate the seesaw effect right on here. That donkey don't look too happy either. No? Okay, any other question, anybody? Yeah. There's several ways of springing. The main reason for springs is for the comfort of the passenger. There are ways of springing the axle to the chassis, to the poles, by the use of drop axles. It's the axle that goes like this. So you still have a good balance, but you have a little bit more room for springing and still have a low center of gravity. But basically springs are just for comfort. They don't make much difference in a drive. I have some pictures of wagons I actually did build. Glad you asked. Let me put a little plug in from my business here. This one, actually, anybody seen the movie City Slickers? Yeah. Well, this is a very chuck wagon that was in the movie City Slickers. Some private collector bought it, stuck it out on the lawn, wrote it all down, and then paid me a nice chunk of pennies to rebuild it, and now it's sitting back on the lawn. So, yeah, these wheels are all needed to be respoked, the felloes were replaced, the brake mechanism, the bed and the bows, all has to be replaced. So it's basically rebuilt from the iron up. Here is another one. That's a big freighter. It's a big Studebaker freighter, probably 1880s, 1890s. It was also used as a lawn ornament and needed extensive restoration. This is a wagon I built from scratch. It's a Studebaker spring type, a light wagon. Takes probably a cup-sized horse or up to pull it. And that was once very, very common. It was basically the pickup truck of the olden days. You could ride it nicely, but you can go to the grocery store, feed store, wherever you had to go, and wagons like this were very commonly used. Those wagons are used by people on the low end of the economical scale, and those are usually people who definitely depend on the working of their donkey, get their products, do the movement of goods and such. And if we could manufacture a standard axle and wheel size and send it to them, but that would be improve things greatly. Well, there are a couple of people who still actually drive on a daily basis. A lot of my business associates are old order Amish, and this particular company I'm dealing with, the gentleman, the only modern convenience is he has one landline in his shop. He has no electricity, no computers, and he has 4 horses and carriages, and they're getting along. And since they absolutely have the carriages, depend on them for transportation, they're better designed. Well, the overall cost on improvement of wheels and proper axles rather than wheels like this one here wouldn't be actually all that great. And there are local woodworkers and craftsmen who could be trained to build a better wheel. You see a lot of cars like this also in the Middle East, where actually a lot of really good craftsmen are living, and it can be done. The main thing, I think, is the education. Educate the people and tell them, hey, it makes sense, get a better cart, you can hold more stuff safer without wearing out your donkey that fast, and it may just sink in.
I was wondering if the EV cars can be retrofitted to fit them with larger wheels.
Yeah, that could be done.
Yeah. You just have to move the axle up.
Yeah, move the axle up, and then you could sit in between like this one here. I think it's interesting that they're actually sitting in between the wheels. One other example of really well-built cars is, you ever seen the harness racers? And those cars are very well balanced. They don't spare any expenses building of them. It's a multi-million-dollar business, and the balance is perfect. You see these jockeys are usually about here tall, you know, and they're sitting right smack on the axle, and they have long poles to minimize any load on the horse, and they're just going for speed. Yeah, when you go to one of the oldest cities in Europe, like Vienna, they have fleets of very well-maintained antique carriages. And if they're taken care of, if you have a wooden carriage you take care of, they last for hundreds of years. Like Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy was hauled to the cemetery in the very same cart. Obviously, whoever built this cart had at least some access to welding. And with very simple tools, you could make an iron tire with iron spokes, and since they drive on unpaved roads, iron tire performs better than a rubber tire. The only drawback is it tear up paved roads. So in many cities you cannot drive iron tires anymore, but since they look like here in the middle of nowhere somewhere, it would make no difference. It would cut down on weight, add stability, and the price could be done fairly reasonable. Well, the tire size is always a compromise. And it depends where you're living. If you're living in a drier climate, you can get by with, you're better off with a smaller tire. If you drive through a lot of muddy roads, you might have to look into some wider tire, or spread it out instead of 2 wheels to 4 wheels, so it gives you a little bit better traction. Well, on a technical level, it's not really a big deal to modify this. Let's see, to use this card as an example.
The technical isn't the issue.
Yeah, the technical is an issue. Finances is the issue. It's how we can tell this guy spent $300 on a new axle and a set of wheels.
Wow.
You
And he
know?
won't be able to drive his cart for a while you refit it, so how's he going to feed his family?
Yeah, it would be down for a day or two. It could be very easily retrofitted, but then he don't look to me like he has $300 extra in his pockets. And if he had $300 extra pockets, he would have probably spent it on buying more food for his family, or a new pair of shoes or something. Thank you so much. I hope we all learned something.